Welcome, everyone, to the last Gasp Fantasy Sports Podcast, coming to you live from the Coaches Podcast Room here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visors, located at Celebration Point here in Gainesville, Florida. My name is TJ White, and my co-host here is Brad Carmen. How you doing today, Brad?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. What a great day being here Sunday morning, talking about fantasy sports, talking about football. We want to say thank you to our sponsors, Archer Electric, Archer Electric Services, Piesano Stone Fried Pizza, Weeby Marketing, and of course, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visors. You can come find us on Facebook, YouTube, at Last Gasp Fantasy Podcast every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Please make sure you click and hit the follow button. Click on the bell to get notifications. So every time we go live, you're getting notified when we're going live.
This week we'll be starting the Piesano's Last Gasp of the Week sponsorship by Piesano's Stone Fired Pizza. The winner each week will get $25 gift certificate to Piesano's. Every Wednesday we will post a Facebook contest. You can respond to the entry and then and then on the post you can submit the answer to the question. You got to follow, like, and share us.
On this week's show, we're going to be talking about the Piesano's Last Gasp of the Week, as Brad just mentioned, why we love and hate fantasy football all at the same time, from the game on Monday night with the Raiders in Baltimore, the big surprise game of the week, the top performers and disappointers. Later in the show, we're going to go over the injury report, waiver wire pickups, who you should have already gotten Monday or Tuesday when the waiver wire opened, and who are the big picks this week. Who are we picking? Who are we starting? Who are we sitting? And we're going to go from there. So it's pretty exciting. It's pretty fired up. So Brad and I are ready to get going the show, and we hope that everything goes well and just ready to talk it, man. Let's start with you, Brad. What you got going on?
TJ, let's start the show today talking about Thursday Night Football. What a great game. 2 weeks in a row now we've had two great games come down to the line. This week it was the Giants versus the Washington football team. The Washington lines up for a 48-yard field goal with seconds left in the game to win the game. He kicks it. It's no good.
Yeah.
But there was a penalty on the play.
Yep.
Giants lined up offside, so they have to re-kick. They're lined up from the 43 to kick, or they're kicking a 43-yard field goal. The kid's long as 56, so he's got the leg.
He's got the leg on, yeah.
Yes. What does he do? Perfect. Makes the field goal. Giants win 30-29 victory. I'm sorry, Washington wins 30-29 victory.
Is that sum up the Giants for you over the last 10 years?
Giants, what's going on?
I mean, when you got Saquon still out now, he was questionable last week, played for fantasy people. They put him in on a Thursday night game, short rest, and then it just sucks. It's just hard to be a Giants fan right now.
And Washington's their second string quarterback because Fitzpatrick went down, hurt.
Yep.
Hinkie comes in, played very well. Now he's a viable quarterback for fantasy football players. He had 336 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 31.4 points on the standard league.
I mean, that's getting 30 points from a quarterback on any league, whether it's PPR or fantasy standard, is a phenomenal week from a quarterback. And especially to start your week off that way, going into these games, having that much of a lead probably is a huge benefit.
Daniel Jones for the Giants didn't play bad himself. With 249 passing yards, a touchdown, 95 yards rushing with another touchdown, 29.95 fantasy points in standard.
Yep. And so, I mean, we went back to Saquon there. He got 8.9. I mean, it's just, you're expecting, I know in a couple of my leagues, he was the keeper pick. And when you have a keeper pick, you expect him to carry the load of your team. And he's just hasn't done that yet. He's not healthy yet, I don't think.
And as both starting running backs really didn't perform. Washington's starting running back was Gibson. He had 13 rushes for 69 yards, 2 catches for 4 yards, pretty much nothing, 9.3 points. But J.D. McKessick, the other running back for Washington, he was the receiver out of the backfield. He's the one that really performed for him. He had 5 catches for 83 yards. And ended up with 20.3 fantasy points in Standard League.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody you can watch us on Facebook Live or YouTube Live this week. Make sure you send in any of your questions, comments right there on the show. We'll get them live. We'll answer them there. And if you have anybody you need to help pick for your fantasy rosters and team to win your second week, give us a shout on there and let us know where the comments are. So we'll be here listening. We're going to keep going on to it. Talking about the running backs there with Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick, like you were saying, Brad, to finish up that Thursday night game with the Giants. They split the load a little bit, but they both had viable points for a team. If you're getting 10 points from a flex player and Antonio Gibson, I know he was a lot higher picked up in most drafts, but that's a great great job if you got both of those guys and are playing them.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to handcuff them and play McKessick and Gibson, I got you.
Right.
I wouldn't really play them both at the same time in my league.
Yep.
But I didn't win either of my leagues either. So
Yeah, how did you do this week?
I had a rough week. I kind of got tied up on the show and forgot to make some adjustments at the last minute and got beaten both my leagues this week.
Well, I went 1-1. I scored 164 points in my PPR league and lost to a guy that scored 172. He had Lamar Jackson Monday night, and I had an 8-point lead, and he came back and got me. So, that's what PPR is. It is a high score, high risk, high reward, and you're going to get a ton of points in those games. We're going to go in and talk about Monday night's game. Why people love and hate fantasy football. If you watch that game Monday night, it was the epitome of fantasy football at its finest. Baltimore's got the lead throughout the game. They come back strong at the end by Las Vegas. It's the first game in the home stadium. It's there. The crowds are pumped up. They go for a score at the very end of the game that's called back. They think they win the game for Las Vegas. That's pulled back. David Carr then throws an interception on the goal line when he's trying to punch it in. So now instead of getting 4 points for a touchdown pass, he loses 2 points for an interception. So that's a 6-point swing. They get the ball back after a Lamar Jackson fumble, which to me was fantastic if I'd have been a little bit closer because that's who I'm playing. Then they go for the field goal. Delay of game, they undo the field goal. So the Carlson, who would have been kicker points there, misses the kick, would have kicked. They decided to go for the touchdown and hit a 45-yard bomb to end the game, Brad.
Yes. I mean, if you have Derek Carr, you're happy about the bomb. You're unhappy about the interception, the called back touchdown. But at the end, I think it really worked out for Derek.
I mean, that's the crazy thing, it's just, and that's what makes fantasy fun. I had no invested interest really in Baltimore or Las Vegas, as a team follower, as a fan. But when you watch it and that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it watching it for me.
Yeah. The other thing I always found hard about fantasy football is you do have teams that are your favorites.
Yeah.
And now, are you rooting against them because your fantasy team is different than your favorite team?
Well,
I mean, my favorite team is Dallas.
Yep.
But if I don't have Dak Prescott, am I rooting for Dak Prescott to score? Am I rooting for Dak Prescott to throw the touchdowns? It's hard.
and that's got to be your battle. That's my biggest battle too, is when I know that I have a fantasy player that's playing against the team I'm rooting for.
Correct.
Like you're saying, if your fantasy player is some Dak Prescott and he's playing against you, but you want him to win. So that's terrible.
Yes.
But it's great at the same time. That's why you love and hate fantasy football.
Well, we're going to go ahead and take our first question of the day. Feel free to send your questions in through Facebook Live. We will answer them as we go through the show. Our first question comes from Freddie Weeby. Should I start Lamar Jackson or Aaron Rodgers? Well, this is one of the subjects I have to talk about today. Is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers had a horrible first game, but I think he's going to be the comeback player of the week. I think Aaron Rodgers is a must start, and he's going to be have a great game. And in these two choices, it's a hard one, but I'm going Aaron Rodgers.
It's a coin flip for me because I saw some of the memes this week that were posted out there for Aaron Rodgers and how old he looks and how beat up he looked out there playing on and getting beat by the Saints this week in Jacksonville because the game was moved last week. He didn't look focused. He didn't look committed. He didn't seem to really want to be there, and that scares me moving into this week, regardless of the caliber player he is. He can be the best player in the world, but the preparation that goes in each week. I don't know if he's putting it in there, but I'm not in his locker room. I'm not there. I would go with Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron did get benched.
Yep.
And he said, if you want to play the guy, play him.
I mean, that's the thing. After all the drama during the year on the offseason for him, with Jordan Love and the communication from that front office, he's there because he has to be there right now. And that's truly what I feel. So if you're asking me, I think Lamar Jackson playing the Chiefs, right? That Baltimore plays. Yep. I think Baltimore plays Kansas City this week, and Kansas City's defense is not very good. I think they're 31 in the league at defensive standards for special teams and defense. I think Lamar has a great day, scores a couple touchdowns, puts up 300 yards, and is a productive option and will score more than Aaron Rodgers.
Well, my prediction is Aaron Rodgers, 366 yards, 3 touchdowns.
If he gets that, then he'll be one of the high scorers of the week next week.
Sir.
So, I mean, that's unreal. So we're going to start talking about previous week's games, going into some information. First off, we want to thank our sponsors, Archer Electric Services Company. They are bringing you over 30 years of leadership and experience in both commercial and residential electric needs to the Gainesville and surrounding communities. We want to thank Piesano's Stone-Fired Pizza. Whether you're looking for a quick lunch or a dinner destination to meet up with friends and families, Piesano's is your place. Celebrate life's most memorable moments with delicious dishes, whether in or in our dining room or yours. Also want to thank Spurrier's Gridiron Grill Advisors and We Be Marketing for their continued support of Last Gasp Fantasy Podcast Show. So just want to thank everybody there, thank all the sponsors. And Brad, one of the big things that we wanted to talk about on the show is what surprised you last week. What is the thing that you were just, if you would have asked me last week, I'd have said there's no way that's going to happen. Besides Aaron Rodgers laying an absolute egg, what I was surprised how Arizona and Tennessee game turned out. I thought Tennessee was going to be a lot better than they were. I thought for fantasy points, Derrick Henry was going to carry the load there, and he just didn't. So, you had Kyler Murray. He was 21 of 32 for 289 yards, 4 TDs, 1 interception for an average fantasy point of 34.56 points.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't beat that
great game.
I mean, it's unreal. On the other side, Derrick Henry was a top 5 pick, had 17 carries for 58 yards at home with no touchdowns. I mean, how do you justify that?
But any of you that have Derrick Henry, do not give up on him. He is a starting running back. Right? Do not trade Derrick Henry this week, okay? Just because he had one bad week. The guy's going to have an awesome year. Stick with him.
Yeah, and so, Kyler Murray led all scorers last week in fantasy points and on the road. A lot of people in the beginning of the year were talking about Kyler Murray as a sleeper quarterback. I mean, he was there last year, but the shoulder was hurt, and I was skeptical, but he absolutely showed out this week. And just with DeAndre Hopkins there, and Kirk, the other side of Hopkins, they both just excelled off of that.
My surprise of the week was Jameis Winston. I mean, is it the system or is it the player? I mean, Jameis has always thrown for a lot of yards, but he's also thrown all those interceptions.
Yeah.
This week, he's 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He had a fantastic game against a Green Bay team that's supposed to be pretty darn good.
Yeah.
So my surprise of the week is definitely Jameis Winston.
And he only had 148 yards.
That's crazy, isn't it?
To have 5 TDs at 148 yards, talk about efficient.
And his longest was 55 yards. Had one for 55, so the rest of them were under 100 yards.
Under 100 yards is what he had. No, it's crazy to think the boom bust with Jameis Winston, and we kind of mentioned that last week, is where how does he come and perform in an outdoor area in Jacksonville? Now named the starter, he's earned it. It wasn't kind of handed to him like it was in Tampa whenever he came there, and I think he's matured a little bit now. I'm not we're going to say his past stuff is gone, but you've seen this before where a quarterback switches locations, moves on, and then figures out something there. Maybe the tutelage from Drew Brees helped him understand what he wanted.
Well, I think there's definitely something to do with systems.
Okay.
Belichick's system.
Peyton's system.
Yes, there's systems.
And it works whenever you bring him in there, no matter who it is. I mean, that's the thing is that, Drew Brees excelled in that system.
Yes, he did.
And so I think Winston's got a better arm than Brees did. And, I mean, we can't forget that his assistants, too, he's got Alvin Kamara sitting right there. He didn't have that in Tampa.
Yeah.
He didn't have the cushion and the blanket to go, hey, I got a bell cow here that I'm just going to hand the ball off. If I'm not making good decisions, I'm going to just hand it off or dump it down and let Kamara. And Kamara had a great week as a keeper,
Again.
So, you mentioned, the other thing here is, who was your surprise performer of the week? I'll let you go first on that. Who was the player that shocked you the most and how well they did?
Mine is Jalen Hurts.
Okay.
I did expect him to go in and have a good game, but not go in and have a great game. And his numbers were 27 for 35 for 264 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then he added 62 yards on the ground with his feet. I think for him, that is a great start to a season.
I mean, that's the thing is that Jalen Hurts there potentially shut the critics up.
Yes.
And I know it's week 1. And I know we're jumping to a lot of conclusions for fantasy-wise, but he was drafted late. You could have picked him up in the 10th, 12th, even 17th rounds in some leagues, and you're going to get a starter. And if he performs like that consistently, you got to steal the draft.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, it's unreal what he's done there for the first week, and got the win. They got another test this week. They're gonna have a good game, and we'll see if he can do back-to-back weeks there. My player performer of the week was no surprise to some people, but was a surprise to me. Matt Stafford starting his first game out there in LA. With 20 for 26, 321 yards, 3 TDs, with a fantasy point total of 24.23. So, Kyler Murray's sitting up there at 30, 34? So just behind, 10 points behind was Matt Stafford coming in. And, I don't think anybody expected him to do that well in LA on his first game.
I agree with you.
So
I am going to interrupt you and go back to our question board. We got Katrina and Nicole. I'm going to give this one to you, TJ. Thoughts on TJ?
that's my dog,
Hawkinson as a starter.
So I have him in one of my leagues, and he killed it.
Yes.
He had an absolute. I told you he was going to be a security blanket there last week in Detroit. He is an absolute must start in every league. He potentially will be a top 3 tight end when it's all said and done. You're going to have Kelsey, you're going to have Waller, and then it's him. It's him or Kittle or the guy you mentioned on our post this week on Facebook. You put a sleeper post out there.
Oh, yes, I did. But, I mean, look at Gronk. Gronk had another great game.
And I think Gronk led all tight ends with scores last week.
Yes, he did.
And so that was from the Thursday night game. And who's the guy that you said on the post? The guy from New Orleans, Jerome.
Oh, yes.
Jerome, the tight end for New Orleans. He had 2 touchdowns inside the red zone. We were just talking about Jameis Winston and how the short yards passage. That's where 2 of the touchdowns came from him.
Well, on our message board, a lot of people like Aaron Rodgers for some reason, or have a lot of questions about Aaron Rodgers. Because we got 2 coming up, Aaron Rodgers or Matt Stafford. This is by Zach Long.
Yep.
Again, I'm going with Aaron Rodgers this week. He's my comeback player of the week.
I am not sold, and this is where me and Brad will differ on that wholeheartedly, is that until he comes out and shows me that he's capable of making the right plays and he's reading and he's there mentally, I'm picking anybody else but Aaron Rodgers.
So go to the next question from Chaz Smith. Aaron Rodgers or Roethlisberger?
Neither.
Okay, but hold on.
I'm going to go to neither of those quarterbacks. Chaz, go pick up somebody off the waiver wire. Get Trevor Lawrence. Get Jalen Hurts. Get somebody who's off the waiver wire. I would not start either of them this week. But if you had to choose one, I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers over Ben Roethlisberger.
Can he go get Fields? Because his Fields going to start this week? Your week 5 prediction?
Yeah, my week 5 prediction might be gone with the Bears. I mean, David Montgomery carried that. But no, I would say that if you had to choose between Stafford and Rodgers, I'm going with Stafford. If you had to pick between Rodgers and Roethlisberger, I think it's got to be Rodgers. I think he'll have more touchdowns. I think he'll have more passing yards. I mean, Big Ben, I'll discuss Big Ben a little bit later in the show. He is one of my topics for today, so it's great that question was asked. So it's pretty awesome there. Who were your biggest disappointments, Brad? I mean, and then that's what I think, when we talk about surprises of the week for the teams and then the best players, and now who are the disappointing players for all of fantasy? And it just makes you scratch your head, but you go, I have a great team. I picked the right players in the draft, and then they just were an absolute bust.
Mine was actually my quarterback.
Yeah.
Josh Allen.
Yeah.
He's MVP candidate this year. Supposed to be at least. Completing 30 of 51. He couldn't find his mark downfield. He was 1 for 8 on his downfield 20-yard plus passes. And he also had a fumble. Wow. He actually fumbled twice.
Got one of them back?
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's crazy, and that's that Steelers game.
Yes.
Where the Steelers beat them in Buffalo.
Yes.
And that's just not nobody. I didn't pick it. That was one of my pick games that lost last week. And so, that's wild. I have 2 this week. And the first one is really kind of the same way with the Josh Allen. They're both 3 and 4 year. He's a second year, I think, quarterback. But I expected him to get better this year. And this was Justin Herbert. He went 31 for 47, had 337 yards and 1 TD for a total fantasy point of 14.5. And when you have a starter like him, he should produce more points. And I have him in a PPR league, and that's the league that I lost because when you do that, it's not there. So I was thoroughly disappointed in Justin Herbert this week. And my second one was we had tons of questions about him during the week and on the show last week, and that where does Najee Harris fall in the running back order? and I have him as my fail this week. He had 16 carries for 45 yards.
Yeah, he was a little bit of disappointment, but he's another one I say do not give up on.
Yeah. And how long would you stay with him?
I'm staying with him at least through week 4.
Through week 4?
Yes. If he can't produce by week 4, okay, let's move on.
That's when you're trying to figure it out. Yeah, and so, I mean, I think he's going to get better and pick up the speed. I think it's easier for running backs to get a feel of the speed of the game, unlike quarterbacks. Like they're saying Trevor Lawrence's speed was a little bit slow and that his reads were a little bit behind when you have 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. So, I think that's a mixed bag. But I think running backs can pick up that speed a lot faster and go into the game.
Yeah, I think you'll see Najee have a good game this week.
And that is who I think, I'm just, until Pittsburgh shows me they can put up fantasy points and they're not strictly a defense, I can't support them and back them. And so it's going to be interesting there and kind of moving on from there. So those were our surprise and bust and whatever we want to call performers of the week. And so we'll move on from there. I'm super excited to start talking about some of the highlights of other things and other games we haven't mentioned yet.
Yeah, let me back up to Monday Night Football real quick. On Monday Night Football, they had their traditional broadcast on ESPN, and then on ESPN2, they had Peyton Manning and Eli Manning doing a broadcast. And if you get a chance, it's going to be every Monday night. So if you get a chance to watch it, watch it. It's a unique take on the game. It was so much fun to watch. They had Russell Wilson,
Ray Lewis,
Kelsey, Barkley on as guests, and they were talking about the game, talking about other things. The funniest comment was Peyton and Eli were talking about their fantasy draft, and they had Russell Wilson on, and they both apologized for not drafting him.
Well, I mean, as being from Gainesville and diehard Gator fans that we are, the jokes are continuously coming from Peyton Manning. And when I went back and you told me to take a look at the thing, and he tries putting on that helmet.
Yes.
When Peyton puts on that helmet and it looks like a 2-year-old's helmet on the size of that forehead. I mean, if you can't enjoy watching that, and he puts it on, and they go, Rydell has to specially make him a helmet because his forehead's so big. So
and Eli's making fun of his forehead.
Eli's ragging on him about his forehead, and then they asked, would you want $10,000 or a quarterback? It's Peyton Manning's helmet full of quarters.
Quarters, right.
And they chose the quarters full. That's just priceless TV, man. It's priceless. It's great. One of the things, too, that we mentioned in the last show was that how was Tyrod Taylor going to do? And he was going to be my sleeper pick of the week. I switched it, and I messed up because he absolutely torched Jacksonville.
Yeah, Tyrod had a great game. He performed like I thought he could in the past. I wasn't expecting Houston to come out and win.
Yep.
And they already have a win under their belts. Jacksonville's supposed to have at least 2 wins this year. I don't know if they're going to get those this year because they can't beat Houston.
No, and we talked about that last week, is that I thought Houston was a game that they fully could have won.
Yes, they should have won.
And they just got down too big too early. I think they didn't keep in the game and let them have a chance to manage it.
Well, I think Trevor Lawrence has got to get used to the speed. He's playing Alabama every single week now, and he's got to understand that. He doesn't have a USF to play, or he doesn't have a UAB to play anymore.
Yep.
These are Alabama's every single week. And you could see he was behind on his throws. His speed wasn't up to task. Hopefully Urban gets him straightened out, and Trevor Lawrence can have a good season. But if we see much more of that, is he worth the number 1 pick that he was?
Yeah. No, that's the question. That's a battle there. I think the other surprise, well, not surprise. You called it. You said Darren Waller was going to be a beast. And you said that he's going to have maybe tight end 1 potential, the number 1 tight end in the league. And he absolutely showed why he is a must for a PPR league, at least in all fantasy leagues, in my opinion.
Carr targeted him 19 times.
Wow.
He was thrown at, more than any wide receiver on the team.
Yep.
There was times I was like, why don't you look somewhere else? But Waller is a beast, and he's going to remain a beast all year. If he is not taken in your league, go get him. I'm sure he's taken because he is a tight end 1 everywhere.
Yeah. No, it was it was great to watch, though. It was perfect to see how those tight ends, and that's one of the positions in all fantasy leagues. So if you're listening in and you're watching live on Facebook or YouTube, make sure that you click that bell notification, click like, follow us, come in here. But when you're watching fantasy teams and you're looking at drafts, and you wonder why people take a swing in the early 2 or 3 rounds on going for a tight end. It's because of guys like Waller, like Kelsey, like Kittle, like Hawkinson, that they could potentially win you every week. Last year on my PPR league, I had 2 tight ends. I had Kelsey and Kittle and played them in a flex because they were getting more points in points per reception on those particular situations.
Back on the Facebook question board, Keith Wheeler, it's more of a statement. The biggest surprise for him was Ayuk this week.
And that's, the Niners went out and performed. I mean, they put up, 38 points or something like that. And to a surprise to me, that with even leaving Raheem Mostert in the first quarter, right? He went out with a knee injury. I think he was gone for the rest of the game. So for what they did and how they came back, it was unreal to watch. I mean, they played very, very well.
And another statement was coming from Freddie Wiebe. Tua matches well against Buffalo.
I wasn't shocked, but to let Miami go into Foxborough and beat the New England Patriots is something Miami fans haven't seen in 50 years?
Yeah, years.
I mean, that's the sarcastic. But it feels like 50 years that they've gone in there and beat Belichick in his own place, in his own system. I mean, it just seems not a normal conversation. And they did it with executing correctly.
Correct.
They didn't have penalties. They didn't have bad misplays. They didn't turn the ball over a ton. And on the opposite side, Mac Jones absolutely played well.
Yeah.
He looked like he just knew the system and was able to walk right in.
And I think you're going to see New England improve throughout the year with Matt Jones.
It was hilarious. Mac Jones, I read him and his girlfriend study the playbook together and learn how. That's where he practices his playbooks all the week, just like she did at Alabama. She'd grill him and test him. And so behind all these great players is a great better half that you don't even hear about, that's teaching somebody or learning this playbooks with them. It's wild to see that, and so it's pretty cool to hear that. And as we go through, keep the questions coming. We love it when you guys ask them what you think, who's your biggest risk reward for this week, and going from there. And so it's fantastic. And so that's great. We love it. We love the interaction. We want this to be about you guys asking us and us giving us your opinion. We had 2 questions actually during the week that we were going to answer. So when they send an email in or send us a direct message or have sent it through our Facebook page or YouTube page, it's been great. So we had 2 questions this week, and one of them was, who do we start between Sterling Shepard and Tyson Williams? And Tyson Williams is the running back that's probably one of the only healthy running backs in Baltimore still. And so do we start Sterling Shepard or him? And what's your take on that?
Tyson ended up having a pretty good game. I'm going to lean towards the running backs on these questions, so I'm going to go Tyson Williams.
Yeah, and so when the question came in, it was kind of hard for me to look it up, so I went and looked it up a little bit. Sterling Shepard has been targeted over 10 times by Daniel Jones over, I think it was 18 or 19 out of those 29 starts.
Yeah.
And in a PPR, which is a 0.5 or a full point PPR, getting those thrown at you, getting the receptions is huge for the numbers. And so I was surprised to see that stat. So, Sterling Shepard started Thursday night. He got 8.5 points. He was targeted, I think, 11 times. A touchdown would have been huge.
Yes.
But the verdict's still out because we'll see Tyson Williams go to Kansas City, and we talked about that defense as being poor. So, we're looking great there. We're going to be going to a break here. And taking a quick second to pay our sponsors, and we'll be right back. Thank you.
Looking for more reasons to celebrate? We have them here at Celebration Point. Enjoy some of the newest additions to our already celebratory lineup, like Dave & Buster's, Les Macarons, and Prime and Pearl. There's always a reason to celebrate. Join us anytime for any occasion. Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate.
Oh my gosh, I can't even believe this. Look what you have done to my truck.
Excuse me, it's your fault, it's not my fault.
Yes, it is your fault.
No,
I am calling Jeffrey Meldon from Meldon Law.
So I'm gonna call Jeffrey, my husband.
Meldon Law, this is Jeffrey speaking.
Jeffrey! This crazy lady here, this crazy lady, he might...
New client? Yes, but this one might be a little tricky.
Are you tired of being sidelined by nagging pain? Hi, I'm Emmett Smith, Hall of Famer and Dance with the Stars champion. Happy to tell you about QC Kinetics and their biologic therapies for treating pain without drugs or surgery.
Are you suffering from chronic pain in your hips, knees, shoulder, or lower back? Are you tired of living with arthritis pain? QC Kinetics offers natural pain treatment that can repair and restore damaged tissue in your joints.
Listen, I know pain, and I've seen firsthand how powerful biologic therapies can be. Patients at QC Kinetics rave about their result because they're getting their lives back. They're getting moving again.
These exciting regenerative treatments used to be available only to pro athletes like Emmett. Now they're available to anyone thanks to QC Kinetics. Call today for your free consultation.
Get long-lasting results from my friends at QC Kinetics.
Call QC Kinetics 352-400-4550. In North Central Florida, call 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics 352-400-4550.
Welcome back, everyone, to the last Gasp Fantasy Sports Podcast, coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visors, located at Celebration Point here in Gainesville, Florida. We're coming to you from the Coach's Podcast Room. I want to say thank you to our sponsors, Archer Electric Services Company, Piesano's Stone-Fired Pizza, Weeby Marketing, and, of course, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visors for letting us use this great location and this room that we're actually doing the podcast in. So it's wonderful. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube at Last Gasp Fantasy Podcast every Sunday morning starting at 11 a.m. Please make sure that you click and hit that like and follow button on those to get notifications when we go live on either YouTube or Facebook. Also, you can be found on all social media platforms, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, Overcast, and over 39 other podcast platforms. Please check out our website at www.lastgasfantasy.com or email us at lastgasfantasy@gmail.com.
And keep asking the questions. Keep them coming on our Facebook Live page. Just make the question in the comment section, and we'll be able to answer them.
Yep. So right there, when you're watching live, you'll be able to add a comment, click in there, type your question. We'll see it up on our screen, and we'll get to it right when we see it. So keep them coming, and we want to thank you all for watching and tuning in live here. Brad, what we're going to do now is we're going to recap the top 10 scores from both standard and PPR leagues last week.
Sounds good.
I think you'll see a big difference between standard and PPR leagues. And I know some people have always just played the regular league and played the same way and done the same thing. And I think it's good to show and help people understand that are tuning in that have never played fantasy football or are always wanting to get involved in it, how those different scoring criteria look and can affect who you drafted in a play. So I think we're going to recap. We'll go recap the PPR league first and then go to the standard.
Yeah. Hey, real quick.
Yep.
I had a question off air last week, and I just want to quickly address it.
Yep.
What is fantasy football?
So what is fantasy football? Fantasy football is the art of picking the best player who's going to score you the most points.
Yes. And the person asked just didn't understand what the difference between the NFL game and the fantasy game was. It's a group that get together and they draft just like the NFL does, and gets a list of players in all the different positions, and they play the game just like it would be in the NFL. They score by yards and touchdowns and incompletes and completes, etc. So it's a game that a lot of people play to help them be interactive and watch the NFL game.
Yeah, I mean, fantasy football, from when I first started and from what it's kind of turned into now, is fantastic. I mean, being able to pick players, have them score for your team, and then it's really a camaraderie thing.
Right.
Being able to call your friend out for how bad his team sucked is a fantastic thing, Brad. I mean, I called my one of the guys from my league last week, and he picked up Tyson Hill the day he got injured. I told you that. Well, I smoked him, 124-94.
Nice.
He was so mad. He called me. I said, dude, that's bad karma, man. You should have touched my guy. And that's what it's about, really, is the friendships that you can create. One of the other leagues I'm in, I've got friends that are up in Washington, D.C. that play with me.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's what the camaraderie about fantasy football does too.
And fantasy football has then adjusted and changed to a whole bunch of different types of leagues. That's why we have the PPR, the standard, and all the different other types of leagues. So as we discuss this, PPR is points per reception, and standard is your standard scoring.
Yep.
So let's go into this.
And so for the PPR, the highest point scorer last week was Amari Cooper on Thursday night's game. He had 38.9. Second was Tyreek Hill at 37.1. And then right behind them was Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, Deebo Samuels, Adam Thielen, Jared Goff, Jameis Winston, Tom Brady, and then Rob Gronkowski rounded out the top 10. And one of the things to note is that how many wide receivers were in the top 6 there.
Yeah.
You had 4 wide receivers in the top 6 because of the point per reception you receive by playing that league.
Correct.
And that's what the difference is between points per reception leagues are and standard leagues are, is that you have a range of players that can be your number one player and number one score getter throughout the weeks, throughout the leagues.
So in standard, our leading scorer was Kyler Murray, which in the PPR, he was 3rd.
Yep.
And then went Patrick Mahomes, which was 4th, Jared Goff, who didn't even make the PPR league.
Yep.
Jameis Winston, Tom Brady, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, Tyreek Hill, Amari Cooper. What I see there is a lot of quarterbacks.
Yeah. I mean, you see your top 8 there are all quarterbacks. Because that's what standard leagues are about, is getting a great quarterback, and they have to produce.
Correct.
And that's when, if you had Aaron Rodgers last week and he was supposed to be your quarterback, he didn't produce.
No.
So, we'll try to do that, recap the scores of last week, show you who the people are, who their names are that are absolutely in the run. And that's probably going to be your MVP list right there.
Exactly.
Who's going to be the best player in the league. And so we've recapped who the best players were, what their surprises were the week, how those were going, and moving those in. We talked about the best players of last week's fantasy football. Now I think we should move into this week's, talk about some things that we're going to do, how's the injury report, and move from there. So I think we'll talk about injuries now, talk about who's in, who's out, who didn't play, who didn't practice, and then go to the waiver wire and talk about picks of the week.
Well, one of the surprise injuries is Josh Jacobs, because Josh Jacobs ended up having a good week last week. And one of the things I was going to tell everybody is, hey, if you can get a trade for Josh Jacobs, trade him now. But he's hurt now.
Yeah. You told me that. You told me that on Monday. You said, trade him while you got him.
Yeah, trade him while he's hot. He would have been a good trade. You might have been able to get one of the running backs that is higher in the draft ranking that didn't do so well this week.
Yep.
But with him coming out hurt, he's got a backup coming in, Peyton Barber. What's Peyton going to do? In Tampa, there's some weeks he had great weeks. There's some weeks he was very poor.
Yep. And make sure you, like Brad just mentioned, make sure you follow on Facebook, because we're posting live daily on sleepers, on ads, on waiver wire pickups. We'll post them on Mondays and Tuesdays to say, hey, make sure in your leagues you're looking for these guys off the waiver wire, because this guy got hurt or that guy's hurt, or he's potentially going to have a monster week.
Let's get a question real quick. Atlanta is horrible, but always plays Tampa tough. I'm thinking of starting Matt Ryan. What are your thoughts?
Oh man, did you see the meme where he was laid out flat and he was on the ground down and hurt? I mean, he has not proven himself to be a viable starting quarterback.
But he has Kyle Pitts there now.
Yeah, he has Kyle Pitts, but Kyle Pitts had a terrible week last week.
He did.
And so you can't start him as a quarterback. And the best defense in the league is who he's playing against.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't start Matt Ryan against Tampa.
Right. I mean, that's the thing, is Tampa Bay has the best front seven. They're going to be in his face all day, and he might have another meme next week where he's laying flat on the floor.
I do think you're going to see Matt Ryan have a better game this week.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see Kyle Pitts end up coming about a little bit stronger this week, and Atlanta's showing a little bit. Do I think they're going to beat Tampa? No.
Right. I mean, I would no, don't start him.
But the other option on that is, who are your other quarterbacks to start? Who else do you have?
Yeah, I mean, who are your options to start between Matt and that's a great question.
Right.
Who are your backup? If it's Tua, start Tua.
Right.
And if it's Trevor Lawrence, start Trevor Lawrence.
I mean, are you Matt Ryan or David Carr or Derek
Carr?
Derek Carr.
I mean, I'm Derek Carr all day. I'm not starting Matt Ryan over Derek Carr. So if you don't have anybody else, then there's definitely people on the waiver wire you can pick up.
Next comment was had Rodgers in a PPR league and still won barely since Hill had a great game.
Yeah, when you have Tyreek Hill having the second most PPR fantasy leagues points, it makes up for a terrible week by Rodgers.
Yes, it does.
All right, on the injury report update, Will Fuller's out. So he's out. Don't start him. He did not practice and he's out for this week. Also, Keelan Cole and Jamison Crowder for the Jets are both questionable as wide receivers. So if you're planning on starting one of them, keep an eye out because they're questionable going into the day.
DeAndre Swift is on the questionable list as well. So we got to check out him before we start Swift.
Yep. Also, OBJ is out again. I picked him up in 2 of my leagues. I drafted him, thought he was going to have a great year. I hope I wasn't wrong because 2 weeks in a row, he's been out. And I think the Browns need him. I think they need his ability to go up, high point a ball, and absolutely create havoc on the back end. But that's only if he's healthy. If he's not healthy, you can't start him, I guess. So he's out. Just keep an eye on that with OBJ moving forward. Also, DeAndre Hopkins didn't practice this week, but he will play.
I think he'll be on the field.
Anybody else on that update list there?
I don't see any major injuries on here that are notable to talk about.
Okay.
But we do have another question on the Facebook question board. And this is an interesting question. I think we can see it both ways. Kittle or Gronk?
Okay. Who are you going with?
They're both great tight ends. If I'm going to choose one, I'm going to go Gronk this week.
Okay. I'm taking Kittle. Kittle. Gronk had a great week last week. I think he was in the highlight game of the week, which is why he had to do it. But I'm taking Kittle's consistency. I've seen Gronk go out there and lip a goose egg. And with the way that the 49ers performed last week and scored 38 points, Kittle's bound to get 10 catches and have 75 yards and maybe a touchdown or two. So I'm sorry, I'm taking Gronk.
I just think after 1 year over in Tampa, Gronk has got the system down. Tom Brady relies on him. Tom Brady trusts him. That is Tom Brady's to go. If the play falls apart, he'll find Gronk.
Gronk's going to be there with the arm brace and all.
Exactly.
So that's a great problem to have if you have to choose between Kittle and Gronk.
That is a great problem. I'm sure they got Gronk late in the draft.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, they did. He didn't get him early, I want to thank our sponsors, Archer Electric Services Company. They're bringing over 30 years of leadership and experience in both commercial and residential electric needs to Gainesville and surrounding communities. Piesano's Stone-Fired Pizza. Whether you're looking for a quick lunch or a dinner destination to meet up with friends and family, Piesano's is your place. Celebrate life's most memorable moments with delicious dishes, whether in our dining room or yours. And I just want to remind everybody that this is the week that we are going to be starting the last Gasp Piesano question, So that's going to be great. This week we are starting the Piesano's Last Gasp of the Week. It's sponsored by Piesano's there. The winner of each week will get a $25 gift card. So we've got those gift cards. You'll go on there. Every Wednesday we'll post the question that we'll have you respond. So go on our Facebook Live contest. You'll respond directly in the comments there for the Facebook post for that Piesano's Last Gasp of the Week. And then you must also like, follow, and share our videos and that post to be entered. So you'll go on there, you'll enter the information, and we'll pick a winner at the end of our show of each week. So that's going to be great. The next show. So we'll put it on Wednesday. It'll go through our show. That'll win the deadline, and then the next show we'll talk about it, see who the winner was, and then tell them to come by and get their card.
Sounds great. Hey, on the waiver wires,
Yep.
I've got a waiver wire pickup. Elijah Mitchell,
Okay.
San Francisco running back. He ended up having 104 yards in game 1.
Yeah.
San Francisco's heavy on the running game.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a running back and he's not picked up yet, go give him a shot.
He was on 3.8 of the rosters this first week.
Yes.
So when you think about that, so Elijah Mitchell, if you're still looking for guys and he's still available, he was a number 1 commodity picked up on mine. Both my leagues, he was going the very first person. So if you were the worst player last week, you scored the least points for your team, you got to get him. Yeah. So, you deserve it, though, because you were that bad.
Ours is through auction bid.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. Another waiver wire pickup, is Zach Pascal, the wide receiver from the Colts. He was on he was only on 3.0 percentage of the league last week, and with their leading receiver out, he's picked up a load, and Wentz seemed to like him.
Yes, he did. I mean, another good pickup, if he's still available, is Nelson Aguilera. He had a great game again last week. He is a bigger name out there, so he might not be out there, but just if you can find him, grab him.
We also had I picked up Kenneth Gainwell out of Philly. I was pretty high up in the order of the draft order, so I was able to get him out of Philadelphia. He was only rostered on 4.8% of the leagues, so he was a big pickup. Two other people that could have come up the waiver wires this week were also, we mentioned him earlier. Sterling Shepard was only on 30.2 of the leagues, and as a waiver wire pickup, get you 10 points in a week. That's huge. Another one, the question that was asked earlier about Roethlisberger and Rodgers, or do I start Matt Ryan at quarterback against the Bucs? Tyrod Taylor was available on 96% of the leagues.
Yes.
Going into the week. And so he is available to pick up and start.
So you going Tyrod Taylor over Aaron Rodgers?
I'd go Tyrod Taylor over Aaron Rodgers.
Over Aaron Rodgers, MVP of the year of the league.
He's terrible, Brad. Get rid of him. If you can get rid of him, trade him. Get rid of Aaron Rodgers. He's a bust this year. And if I have to eat my words later on in the year, I'll do it. But it's
later in the year. You mean next week?
Oh, no way. No way he does that. It's Tyrod Taylor over Aaron Rodgers, and you can laugh at me all you want, but that's what I'm picking. He proved it last week against Jacksonville.
You think Tyrod Taylor's going to have another good week?
Yes, he's showing out there. He's earned the starting role. He's got good backfield that's worked for him. He's gonna do another great week.
So Houston wins how many games this year?
Well, that division's terrible. I think everybody in that division lost, or they played each other. Jacksonville played them, but so they've got to play that same teams twice a year. So you got to imagine at least 6 wins, right?
6 wins for Houston.
After a terrible league, yes, 6.
No, they've got one, so they got 5 more to go.
5 out of the next, so we're good, right? We're gonna go to the picks of the weeks, Brad. We went through the waiver wire pickup, and we'll go there, talk about each game real quick, run it through, and then keep moving forward. So we've got the Giants in Washington. We know how that turned out. Washington won on a late kick. They won 30-29 at Washington. So it's a great win for them. In that division where if you sometimes go 8-8, it's a great game. So we'll go to New England at New York Jets, and that seems like a no-brainer to me.
I think Matt Jones gets his first win.
You're going with that? That's a
Matt
bold
Jones
pick.
is going to get his first win.
So New England over the Jets. We got Denver at Jacksonville.
Jacksonville doesn't have a chance.
What?
Jacksonville does not. What they showed me last week, they do not have a chance.
So I'm picking Jacksonville over Denver. And I've done that. I picked Jacksonville over Houston. And I think I'm just going to pick Jacksonville until they win, and then I sound right.
Go to Vegas.
Just keep rolling the money. No. And then no, Denver's tough. Denver's favored by 6.5. Jacksonville's at home. Trevor Lawrence had 300 and something yards passing, 3 TDs. I think he might get it done. I mean, but we'll see. We got Buffalo at Miami. Buffalo lost to Steelers last week, going into Miami, who had coming off a huge win. Is that a letdown game for Miami?
Yes, it is.
So Buffalo takes it?
Buffalo takes it.
Okay. I'm taking Buffalo because they can't go 0-2. They can't start the season 0-2 and think that their playoff hopes are going to be good. We got San Francisco at Philly. I like San Francisco going into Philly and beating them, even though Philly was much improved last week. So I got San Fran over Philly. I got LA at Indy. Who do you like there?
I'm going to go with the home team on this one because I think it's a pick 'em otherwise.
Yeah, I mean it's 3.5. LA's favored by 3.5 over Indy. Indy lost last week.
Yep.
They're at home. They should get a little bit of help coming back. Wins his first game as a starter there in Indy. Played pretty well, and we'll see. So you got Indy going there. You got Vegas at Pittsburgh.
I'm definitely going Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, Pittsburgh is a 6.5 point favorite in that game, and you're going Vegas.
I'm going Vegas.
So Pittsburgh's defense is very, very difficult this year.
Yeah,
and they're playing tough. So I'm having to take the home team Pittsburgh over Las Vegas, and Vegas' hangover from Monday Night Football.
Waller's going to have 2 touchdowns, so put him in the game.
Okay.
Derek Carr is going to have a decent game. Najee Harris is going to have a good game for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean that's what you've said. You said he's going to carry the load there and do
Yes.
better than he did last week and have a touchdown.
It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a close game. Vegas
Yep.
is going to pull it out by 3.
I got Cincinnati at Chicago. Cincinnati's getting 3.5 at Chicago. Joe Burrows proved himself last week.
Burrows did well.
Jamar Chase showed me up. I thought he was going to have a terrible game, and he went out there and just lit the field up.
Who's the quarterback for Chicago?
I think it's still Andy Dalton. I think Andy Dalton.
Do you think Fields gets in the game?
Fields got in the game last week.
I mean, but do you think he gets in the game to take over?
No, not yet. We said week 4. We're sticking with week 4. Or week 5. Did we say week 5?
You,
Week 4?
you went 5. I
Okay.
went week 3.
Okay, you went 3. I went 5. We'll meet in the middle at 4.
I think Justin Fields plays the second half of this game.
Okay.
I think Justin Fields ends up bringing Chicago back in the game, but Cincinnati pulls out the victory.
Cincinnati still takes it. Houston at Cleveland. Cleveland is 11.5-point favorites. We just talked about Tyrod Taylor and him having to have a game. If Houston wants any chance of winning, he has to have a game. So they've got Cleveland heavy. I've got Cleveland. I like Cleveland there. I think Mayfield gets it done, and that staff with Nick Chubb.
Well, I think Nick Chubb is the difference in this game. I think Nick Chubb, carries Mayfield in this game, and I do think that Cleveland beats Houston because I don't think Houston's going to win their 6 games or 5 games, whatever you gave them. But I think you're going to see a closer game than 11.5 points.
Yeah. All right, 11.5. Any double-digit NFL game by Vegas is nuts.
Right.
And it just doesn't happen. The games are too close. New Orleans at Carolina. New Orleans is the favorite at 3.5 after what Jameis Winston did last week. Carolina going into Carolina. To me, it's a pick 'em. It's a coin flip. 3.5 is nothing there. I like Carolina over New Orleans. I just think that they're going to do something different that to bring the heat on Jameis. They won't let him sit in the pocket and get comfortable.
My bold prediction here is Jameis will not have 5 touchdowns.
That's a great. Oh yeah, yeah. I think he had 5 all of Tampa time. You know what I'm saying? So Minnesota at Arizona. They've got Minnesota favored. I think Arizona with Kyler Murray. So they have Arizona favored over Minnesota. I think Kyler Murray's too strong. I think he puts up too many stats, and they beat Minnesota. I think the next game's pretty simple. Atlanta at Tampa Bay. Tampa's too strong, too many weapons.
Do they cover, though? 12.5 points.
They beat them by 30.
Okay, so
they beat them by 30. And that's me being a homer for Tampa. I understand. Go Bucks. But they beat Atlanta by 30. And I think Kyle Pitts gets his first touchdown of the year. So go Gators there. Tennessee and Seattle. I think Seattle's been playing really well. I think Derrick Henry gets off the schneid on the touchdown. So start Derrick Henry. He's going to be good. He'll get you some points. I think Russell Wilson hammers the deep pass again. He had 2 over the top with Lockett again this last week. And I think they beat Tennessee at home in Seattle. Here's your team. Who do you like here?
Oh, I'm going Dallas all the way.
Dallas.
I would definitely homer this game, and it's not going to be 3.5, baby. It's going to be 10.5.
All right. So he likes Dallas over the Chargers in L.A. We got Kansas City and Baltimore. That's going to be a great game. Baltimore, tough loss Monday night in Las Vegas with an early lead. Kansas City's coming off a big win against Cleveland. That was a hard-fought game. This could go either way.
Where do you go, though?
Until somebody proves that Patrick Mahomes is not the number 1 quarterback in the league. I mean, Brady's the GOAT, but he's consistently number 1 right now.
Well, Lamar Jackson's going to prove it this game.
You're going Baltimore?
I'm going Baltimore. Lamar Jackson shows off and shows Patrick Mahomes how to play quarterback.
I'm going Kansas City over Baltimore. They're going to cover the 2.5, and that'll take that game. The last game is Monday night, Detroit and Green Bay. Green Bay is minus 10.5. Everybody thinks that you're doing. Everybody believes you. I don't see it.
Yeah, Green Bay's going to come back. Aaron Rodgers is going to have a great game. Like I said, 366, 3 touchdowns. So
I think Jared Goff beats Green Bay. I think Detroit beats Green Bay, in Lambeau Field, in their face, and that situation only gets worse.
We got to start keeping track of these.
I know. See who's going to do well and do not. So as we're getting closer to the end of the show, we wanted to talk about our startem and sittems, recap last week's, and then do our Good Samaritan thing of the week. So last week, our starters were Darren Waller, Marquise Callaway, and Miles Sanders. Darren Waller had 17.5 points, did well. Marquise Callaway had 1.4, didn't do well. And Miles Sanders was serviceable at 13.3 points per game. I remember points last week for fantasy. So both those 3, 2 of the 3 were great. 1 was a letdown. This week's stardom for me is Matthew Stafford. huge week last week. And Devin Singleton. I think Devin Singleton's going to have a great week this week for Buffalo in Miami. I think he's going to carry the load, and I think he's going to get some points down there.
Well, my starters shouldn't be very much of a mystery. I'm going with Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
And Darren Wallen.
Nice. The Sittems last week, we had Lamar Jackson and Jamar Chase. And if you sat both of them, you probably were mad at yourselves because Lamar Jackson had 22.35 points, which is decent for a quarterback. And then you had Jamar Chase, who had 16.9 in his rookie debut with Joe Burrow. So unreal way to start. Had some long passes, did a great job. This week on our Sittem, I'm telling you to sit Big Ben Roethlisberger. He's not showing me that he's going to potentially have a great week. He might have a touchdown and a couple 100 yards, but they're going to try to slow up the clock, slow the game down, and try to keep points moving that way. Also, my other Sittem is Robinson out of Jacksonville. Hyde stole too many touches last week and tried to and cut into his fantasy points. And it's just going to be a split system there, and I would not start either one of them.
Yeah, my Sittems, if you go get him, is Peyton Barber. I think he's worth a pickup if you have nobody, but I'd sit him if you have somebody on the bench. And then my other Sittem is Tyrod Taylor.
Yep. And so last week we had our sleepers and our bust. Marvin Jones Jr. had 13.7. He was very good, serviceable, got a touchdown there for Jacksonville. And I said that David Montgomery was going to be a bust. He had 18.8 points, and he showed me wrong. So, that's incredible for and those sleepers bust picks of the week. We're going to move to the Good Samaritan calls of the week. And this one comes from the Thursday night game for Washington's football team. They are involved in a program called the Loads of Love, the LOL program, which aims to install laundry facilities at schools and nonprofit organizations to directly impact children experiencing homelessness and unstable living situations at no cost to their families. So it's a program that's helping people have clean clothes and to show up to school. And they say those are disparities that can cause bad attendance and things like that. So the goal is to remove a barrier of child attendance and participation in programs and sports by providing them a discrete solution to a challenge of having clean clothes. And so, some of us take it for granted, the little things. And so when you hear things like this by these NFLs and the teams that aren't just on the field, they're giving back to the communities in special ways. We want to applaud them and the Washington football team for this program that they're running and doing. So it's awesome, Brian.
Yes. Also, we have a few sponsorships available still. If you go to our lastgaspfantasy.com, go to our rate card, you can fill out a sponsorship form and sponsor the show. If you have a 30-second commercial, you can do commercials on the show as well.
So once again, you can find us on Facebook and YouTube at Last Gasp Fantasy Podcast every Sunday morning starting at 11 a.m. So make sure you click the like and the bell notification. So we got it. I got it on my phone today. We can also be found on all social media platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, Overcast, and 39 other podcast platforms. We want to say special thanks to our sponsors, Piesano's Pizza, also Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visors, Weeby Marketing, and Archer Electric for the continued support for the show. And we want to thank all the viewers and listeners for sending in your questions. It's been a great show. It's been a great day. And Brad, what are you looking forward to next week? What's the biggest thing, man? You excited about this show today or excited about the games tonight?
Just a real quick shout out to the Gators. They played a great game last night, except for the loss. But great game, and that's why TJ's got a horse.
Yeah, I was yelling, man. It was packed house, and it was an awesome game. But we want to thank you, and we'll see you guys next week. Have a great one.